podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's Only a Game podcast with hosts Jimmy, Greg, Deg and Matt. Sat in the main stand, bringing football topics with occasional guests. Download, subscribe and stream for a hat-trick of support. Tap in ratings and reviews on your podcast platform. Stay on side with our YouTube channel and social media pages.
Well, it's half-time. England 0, Slovakia 1. I knew they'd come at us, Slovakia. You could just tell before the game. You know, Southgate's only changed one player. He's put Mainu in, which obviously deserves to play. But why can't you play Gordon, or why can't you play what's the other lad, Watkins, or put Palmer on, just to change it up a bit, so that Slovakia have something else to think about. They've prepared for Kane and Foden and Bellingham with the looks of it. Let's see how we get on at half-time in the second half even, but we've been awful, really. We've not been at it, have we? Kane's off balance every time he hits the ball. We've just not been at it at all, really.
Tactically, and watching it is about as boring as being an army celeb eating rice and beans every night. The most predictable starting 11, the most predictable tactics, the most negative football I can ever recall watching England, and yet they've got some of the best players. It's a whole Gerrard Lampard era then, isn't it? And you've got, Bellingham's come into the game a little bit more as it's gone on, as they've actually got him onto the ball. But you are not going to beat any professional team, internationally or not, when John Stones has had more touches of the ball and more possession than the vast majority of the squad combined. Every time, like they let them free kicks on the edge of the halfway line, and without even looking forward to see what options on, they're just pinging it back.
What I don't understand is the England fans, we can see ourselves what he needs to do. We can see what Southgate needs to do to change everything. We knew it before the game kicked off. We said, right, we could do with different tactics, we could do with a different approach. It's now knockout, it's now or nothing. I don't understand how Southgate doesn't see it himself. How is it that everyone in England can see it? Roughly speaking, a lot of England fans can see what we need to do. But why is it the so-called experts, Southgate, England manager, and the players can't figure it out? I don't understand. The majority of England fans can't all be wrong, surely you'd have thought. But and even you're listening to Keane, Neville, and Wright, they've got it all. They're switched on to a certain degree, and they're not with Southgate on this. It's just mad how a lot of people, talking the majority of the country, know what we need to do here. We can't play the same structure against every team that we come up against. It's incredibly naive, but here we are. He plays the same near enough 11 against everybody, and you can only do that on FIFA. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
Hi everyone, Jimmy here. It's my morning after reaction to, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this considering my complaining to my girlfriend in the 94th minute yesterday's game, but my reaction to yesterday's England 2, Slovakia 1. I still don't know how England blagged that. I absolutely have no idea. I think we're all in agreement it's probably one of the worst performances at a major tournament we've seen. It had vibes of Iceland in 2016. It had vibes of sort of the Algeria game in the group stage of 2010 rather, for those of us who are old enough to remember that. Genuinely one of the worst, not just England performances, one of the worst performances from a team that I think I've seen, a team that's meant to be favourites for a game, that I have quite potentially ever seen. It was insipid, it was timid, it was backwards, it was lacklustre, it was everything you shouldn't expect to find in the knockout game of a major international tournament from a team that is arguably favoured. And I think really the place to start is to actually give Slovakia some sort of credit. I think they came and did a job. It wasn't an amazing performance from them. I don't think they were spectacular. I think they were efficient. They had a plan. They all played like they knew each other. They all played like, there was a system in place and they had the players to fit the system. which was to stifle England, to frustrate England and the attacking talent that we do have, the individuals we have, and it worked. To be fair to them, it absolutely worked, and they were able to, prey on the fact that England started nervously. I mean, England started like they knew every single touch was going to be scrutinised by 60 odd million people, plus the rest of the world, and it's exactly what happens, and it's exactly what contrived to be. That first half an hour was incredibly nervy. The referee, very overzealous with his bookings, admittedly, which didn't set the tone for a particularly free-flowing game if you think you're not going to be able to get away with all that much, or at least be able to put in a half-decent tackle. So that was bad. That was poor from the perspective of just letting the game go and let the game flow. But the reality is that I think Slovakia were okay. I mean, I must say, I don't think Slovakia played any better than, say, Slovenia did in the group stage. I don't think Slovakia, to be perfectly honest, are even the best team England have faced at this tournament. I think Denmark are still, for me, the best team on the day that England have played in a game. Slovakia were fine, but they weren't brilliant. They were effective, but they weren't brilliant. And because you got the feeling that despite that first goal from Schranz, who, at the point of him scoring, had actually scored more goals at the total than England had, like collectively. They scored, and it was such sloppy defending from England. It was, and I must say, rare sloppy defending from England in this tournament. Whilst the attack has been absolutely abysmal, the defence, to their absolute credit, has been quite solid, albeit it hasn't had a lot to contend with until arguably this game, bar a long shot from Denmark that went in. But yeah, I mean, Slovakia were fine. They were okay, but they weren't. Look, we're going to get a much sterner test from Switzerland on Saturday evening. I have no doubt, and we'll get on to that, I'm sure. And I'm sure some of the other lads will cover it as well. But Slovakia weren't brilliant. They were good, they weren't brilliant. And that's my concern, is it took, 94, 95 minutes for Jude Bellingham to pull out an absolute worldie that nobody saw coming. We'll get onto that in a moment, I know, but I just think the lack of change from Southgate until 10 minutes to go, setting on Ivan Toney with 2 minutes to go. It's very reactive, and it's not even reactive, it's slow to react. It's as if he's trying to make it look like the worst possible job he can maybe do. It's as if, I don't know what he's trying to do, to be perfectly honest. And you can say, but England are through, and that's all that matters in a way. Yes, that is all that matters, but we're not getting past the quarterfinals playing like that. We shouldn't be where we are now, to be perfectly honest. And it was awful. It was awful. Like I say, is it possible to boo a win? Is it possible to be disappointed with winning a game, even in such dramatic circumstances? The fans are all buzzing and singing at the end of the game, and I just think, well, yeah, the result you can celebrate. It's a results-based business at the end of the day. It's the classic example of winning without playing well, scraping a win. But let's be completely honest here, none of it was deserved in terms of, yes, okay, we dominated the game. We had the majority of the ball, majority of the play, and admittedly, I'm out at the moment, by the way, so apologies if you can hear a lot of traffic noise around me. Currently wandering around the central Liverpool on a bit of a break, just doing this voice note. But yeah, back to the game. I mean, yes, we dominated the game, I feel, and Slovakia went one up and let us attack them because they knew we wouldn't offer much. They played it risky to do that, because we could have hopefully, we could have turned it on, but we didn't. But I mean, it was such a weird performance, because it wasn't happening, and then it wasn't happening, and then Foden's goal gets ruled off for offside, which is fair enough because it was offside marginally. But then all of a sudden, from despair and fans leaving and people saying, well, England are out and it's the worst game since Iceland and it's a national inquest, it's a disgrace, and Bellingham has that moment of magic that you seldom see from an England player in the latter stages of a game. It's back in 2001, I should say, against Greece to qualify for the 2002 World Cup. It's Gerrard for Liverpool against Olympiacos, or that kind of special player in that special moment, that last moment that has that aura. And Bellingham hadn't been in the game much, admittedly. None of them had, you know. Attacking wise, it was subpar, to say the least, to be polite. But he pulls it out in the bag in that last minute, and in that moment then, you deep down you kind of knew, look, it's 1-1, it's going to extra time, we don't deserve to be going through to extra time, but hey, here we are. I think deep down then, personally, I felt we'll win this now, because we've seen this happen so many times before. Usually the other way, we've been rooting for the team that's less favoured, the underdog team, and they've taken it to the very last minute, whether it be international football or Champions League, whatever it may be. And then it's gone to, you know, late on, the heavy favourites have scored a late goal, especially one of that quality as well. You know, not every team's got players that can do that in the 94th minute to bring you back from the brink of elimination. Not to gloat, because there's nothing to gloat about, but, you know, truthfully, there really isn't that many players and not many teams that can do that at this tournament. And you know, if it happened in reverse, if we'd have been rooting for the underdog team and the team had vastly superior quality, heavily favoured, done that in the last minute, we'd have all gone, oh fuck, well, we're going out then, aren't we? Let's be honest. You know how this ends. And the truth be told, because we were the favourites, because we're, as English people anyway, I speak from the English perspective, supporting the favourites. Obviously, those of you that saw the ITV backstage coverage will know that Roy Keane wasn't exactly supporting the favourites. That was brilliant, by the way. And any self-respecting Irishman would have reacted exactly the same way. Just because he's waiting for English media, British media, doesn't mean he has to celebrate England scoring. I'm glad he didn't. Keep that kind of behaviour up, Roy. That was wonderful. But for those of us that are supporting England, I mean, we were obviously still nervous that, oh God, this isn't over and this is going to go to penalties. And even when it went to 2-1, we were all still thinking, we ain't done here. But I think the rest of the world kind of knew, for as bad as England had been, this is what happens with teams that are favoured. They find a way. It's Real Madrid a couple of years ago in the Champions League, where they may not, I'm not saying we're going to do that, we're not going to go and win the whole thing, we're just not. But, you know, against like Man City and against like Chelsea and even Liverpool in the final, where they just found a way somehow of winning it. Now, obviously, they've got the heritage of actually winning competitions behind them, and the weight of actually all that history and the aura. England kind of really don't. But yeah, going forward, Switzerland are a good side. I mean, I vastly underestimated Switzerland in my predictions before the group stage, and you know, they got a great win over Hungary, which completely jeopardised Hungary's tournament, by the way. Regardless of what they went on to do with their late goal against Scotland, Hungary never truly recovered from that defeat to Switzerland in the opening game there. A draw against Scotland's probably the only blemish on their copybook. I mean, let's go 1 down to Scotland and then, okay, be gifted an equaliser. Great finish from Shaqiri in that group game. Poor pass from Anthony Ralston, mind you. I just think that, again, they remind me of like an Austria, or they remind me of like a Denmark, where they're not a team of absolute superstars. They've got some big names, got some good players, but they're a solid unit, you know. The manager Yakin had to have some help at some point during his reign to try and get him and Switzerland back to where they want to be, and now they're performing at a level that, you know, it's probably beyond most people's expectations of Switzerland in this tournament. They've knocked out the Italians, the reigning champions. We couldn't beat Italy, so, you know, well, not in the Euros anyway, we did in the World Cup, in the Euro qualifiers, admittedly for this tournament, but yeah, it's really hard to know what to make, because if we play like we did against Slovakia or Slovenia or Denmark or the last hour against Serbia, for basically about 80-90% of this competition, we will not beat Switzerland. But part of you now, and I don't know about you guys, but part of me is thinking now, maybe we're just lucky. Maybe we're just going to be shit and lucky. Maybe it doesn't matter how we perform, because we might just win anyway, somehow, some way, find a way. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. What I'm saying is it's a possibility that we could be just as dreadful again in the quarterfinals and sneak a 1-0 or a 2-1 or penalties or anything. We don't know. And that's kind of where we are. Is a bit of an unknown with England. Is it going to be just as awful on Saturday as it has been? I suspect it will be. Don't expect them to turn it on because they've had that eureka moment where Bellingham scored, and then, for full disclosure, it went to obviously extra time, Blue full time. I thought, right, I'm going to go to Lou here, and didn't realise that the game had restarted. Next thing you know, the shout and the scream from downstairs, England has scored 2-1, and I'm like, nah, sorry, not believing you, you're trying to fool me. No way, no, the game's not even restarted yet. Next thing you know, check my phone, bloody hell, they actually have. I've missed the goal. Oops, didn't realise it was that short a turnaround between full time and the extra time beginning, but hey ho. So that was the story of my moments when Kane got the second. But we've had that big moment in the tournament now, which can spur teams on to win things. It's little moments like that can take a team from being bang average to, oh hello, they might actually do something special here. We all remember Portugal in 2016. They were dreadful. In fact, they were dreadful up to the semi-finals, where they beat an admittedly, a Wales team playing at their max. But they went on to win the tournament, and they were largely dreadful. So it's not impossible, but I think you've got to be realistic in that you can't just win a tournament on vibes most of the time. You can't just win it on luck. You can't just win it on just, hey, it's okay, we'll just shut them out and then hope someone does something spectacular up top in the 90th minute, because that's not a consistent game plan ultimately. But part of you does just think now, are we just lucky enough to do this? I still suspect not. I still suspect that Switzerland have too much for us, and if not Switzerland, then whoever comes out the other half of the part of the draw in a semi-final, should we get there, would probably, if it is sort of say Austria for example, or Turkey or whoever, I suspect we'll still have too much, because they'll be just too strong and just too solid, and they'll be too confident, rather than a Slovakia team who came third in their group, with their only win being a slightly fortunate 1-0 win over Belgium, with Belgium having 2 goals disallowed before losing themselves to Ukraine, who came bottom. So, Slovakia had hardly had an amazing record going into this tournament, going into this knockout round. Never had we. And we scraped through. Switzerland are an altogether different prospect. They probably should have beaten Germany. And they've seen off Italy. A very different prospect, and I suspect we may find ourselves very disappointed come Saturday night. But, like I say, if there's luck on our side, if your luck's in, your luck's in. I just sincerely hope they have a real sit-down, a real heart-to-heart, and ever likes of Rice and Bellingham have come out defending the manager and defending themselves against perceptions from the fans. And I understand that it's the media, they've got to be appearing like a united front and a strong front. There must be some internal discussions about what's working, what's not working, how they can improve going forward in particular. Defensively, yeah, you might give up a goal, but like I say, if you, for example, look at Spain, okay? Georgia went 1 up ahead last night, and Spain ultimately showed that's how you come from behind to dispatch a less fancied underdog team when you're heavily favoured. They're going to win 4-1. There's no question, no quandary. No one's worried that you went 1 down to an own goal from the Le Mans against Georgia, because you go and win 4-1. It's no drama. It's done. You went 1 behind, blip, fine. You're winning by half time, I think 2-1. So, whereas England's did it in a more memorable way, a much more dramatic way, one that will make more headlines and certainly make the video package of the tournament when it comes to that big end of the Euros video that UEFA like to do. It'll be beamed forevermore as an iconic moment, but do you want iconic moments to be in the round of 16, or do you want them to be in the final? And that's something that this England team have to address in the next few days. Is, do we want that to be our defining moment, or do we want it to be something that kickstarts something altogether more memorable and more impressive and far more worthwhile than, hey, we equalised against Slovakia? Because at the moment it's not enough. It's where we are, we're through, and I guess the only positive you can say is we are still in the competition, and as long as you're still in it, you can still win it. But the competition gets harder and harder as you go along, naturally. Some say about the easy side of the draw and the hard side of the draw. I would say there are bigger names in one half of the draw, obviously, bigger nations, more fancied nations at the start of the tournament. But that by no means does that mean that this half of the draw is in any way easy. You know, like I say, Switzerland, the quarterfinals, and then it's, at the time of recording, one of Netherlands, Romania, Austria, or Turkey in the semi-final if you get through. I mean, they're all there on merit. They're all going to be good sides. Whoever gets out of those four is going to be a bloody good side. And if England do make the semis, which again, I don't want to think too far ahead because we don't reserve to even be in the quarters, you do begin to wonder how easy is the easy half of the draw, quote unquote. I don't think it's particularly easy. I don't think there is an easy half. But anyway, it remains to be seen. England are through. That's what matters. It was dramatic. It was dreadful. But it was done. And look, as the saying goes, you win every game 1-0, you win the league. I'd rather England didn't do that to us again. I'd rather they just got the job done properly on Saturday against Switzerland, but I'm not too confident. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Keep it up. Remember, it's only a game. Take care now. Bye.
Some great points by Jim about England's performance and what they need to do in the rest of the tournament if they have ambitions to get to the final or win the tournament. But obviously, everything is very valid there from Jim. There's a few things that I picked up on when it was full time. Obviously, Jimmy mentioned a little bit about Roy Keane there. Roy Keane said something along the lines of credit where credit is due to Southgate getting the job done. I'm not necessarily sure how to look at that, really, because all four performances have been, below average, you could say. Fair enough, the results are there. We haven't lost, but there's a sort of demand in the modern football, you could say, last 4 years that I hear at Rochdale Football Club, really, and that's something. If you hear it at Rochdale, it's the manner in which you go about things. So it's the manner of defeat, it's the manner of victory, it's the manner in which you go about doing, getting the result. Really, you hear about it when you get beat, obviously, like the manner of, it's the manner of how we've got beat today by Gateshead or Oldham or what have you. And that's always a big thing in terms of if the application is there and then you lose 1-0, you go, oh, that was a bit unlucky. And you don't necessarily criticise it as much because you know that, say, our team, for instance, have put the effort in. But I wouldn't necessarily say credit is where credit is due in this particular instance, like what Roy Keane was saying, because it didn't feel right to say that, and I don't know where I'm particularly coming from in some respects, because Bellingham saved Southgate's job really with that goal, and that's probably not being talked about enough in one respect, because we were seconds from going out, and it would have been all over the news, and Southgate would have left, blah blah blah. It was literally, I've never seen anything that close with England where we're going out here, and somebody completely shift it with an amazing goal, which it is a world class goal. Bicycle kick, fantastic goal, really was. It was a smash and grab, really, in some respect. That was a smash and grab. We got the equaliser, but I'm not too sure about what Roy Keane ran about there. Credit where credit is due, because I don't think the application was there, really. The application wasn't there from majority of players. It was only until we were up shit creek, really, that we needed to get something from the game. And I don't know if can you credit the players for that? I'm not too sure. There's a very small handful that I thought played well. Not well, but okay. Obviously, Bellingham is the hero. He's the hero of the day, and Kane to a degree. But you shouldn't really... I know it's easy to say on paper England have got a good team, but you should be putting Slovakia away. You really should. It's like, I don't know, what can you compare that to? It's you really should on in theory. And I get, like Jimmy's mentioned this in previous voice notes, we don't have a divine right to beat anybody, but really, we've got allegedly we've got the best player in England, the best player in Spain, and the best player in Germany, all playing in the starting 11. So we should be really beating teams like Slovakia. And credit to Slovakia, they came at us. I knew they would. Fair enough, there were a few tactics there that were sort of unsavoury. I didn't agree with a lot of it in terms of going down, pretending to be injured or something like that, time wasting. But we see it all over in modern football. We see it in the Premier League. I see it in the Conference with Rochdale, not particularly us, but teams we play against. You see these tactics, and sometimes it does get you over the line. It didn't for Slovakia, but you could see that was their game plan. And in fairness, yes, fair enough, it's not an honest game plan, obviously going down and pretending to be injured and stuff like that, but that's what they believed were going to get them across the line, really, in terms of they were seconds away from being in the last 8. And I just thought, well, it didn't really look like we had a game plan until there was seconds left, or call it 15 minutes left or something. I'm not too sure what we were doing, really, but yeah, it's one of those. It's skin of the teeth, really. It's skin of the teeth that we're in the last 8. Switzerland will be a tough test. There's no doubt about that. They put away Italy. Fair enough, Italy haven't been outstanding, but they're the reigning champions. You've got to give Switzerland credit where credit is due. They are there as well, and they'll want to play England because, yeah, fair enough. We were allegedly we got these world class players allegedly, but they'll fancy the chances against us because they've got this far as well and they've knocked out the champions in Italy. So yeah, there's a lot of. It's great that England have won and we were chuffed obviously last night watching it, but the application isn't there, and I'm not really sure if I can celebrate it to a degree, which we did, but you go, oh right, wow. It's almost like when United got to the FA Cup final. Who did they beat? I can't remember it. Where was it? Not Watford. It'll come to me in a minute. That was like a deflated sort of victory in a way. It's sort of like, gosh, we're through. But yeah, I think England we need to do more. I'd be tempted to give Watkins a go. Let's give Switzerland something different to think about, which we should have done with Slovakia. I know these substitutions were late the other night, and I thought it was a bit wild to put Ivan Toney on. I thought that was bizarre because it was a risk to take Bellingham and Kane off. Because if Slovakia would have got a second goal, are we really going to penalties without Kane and Bellingham? So I think some of it was very. There was no real tactics behind Southgate's decisions, really, because are you really going to take Bellingham and Kane off when it could potentially go to penalties? That was risky. And I know, like Keane ran about risk, top managers make risks, but the right risks, that I thought that was a negative risk in a way to take off Bellingham and Kane. We weren't absolutely mopping the floor with Slovakia, so why would you take them off? I get, fresh legs and things like that, but if it's going to penalties, we would have been knackered. We'd have been out on penalties. There's a lot to sort of decipher and rip apart with England at the minute, but let's see how we get on against Switzerland on Saturday, 5 p.m, and we'll have some more voice notes of the upcoming days as well, which I'll try and stick together as one mini episode. Thank you all very much for listening, and as Jimmy said before, it's only a game.
It's Only a Game podcast with hosts Jimmy, Greg, Deg and Matt. Sat in the main stand, bringing football topics with occasional guests. Download, subscribe and stream for a hat-trick of support. Tap in ratings and reviews on your podcast platform. Stay on side with our YouTube channel and social media pages.
Sports Social Podcast Network.